If you're anxious and you know it, wring your hands. If you're grumpy and you know it, then withdraw. Or you could do something else. We're going to talk about that right now. Mended Light. So today, you've created a hypothetical situation.
Yeah. Well, okay, to be honest, this hypothetical situation came from the Secure Love book by Julie Manano.
Okay.
So we took all of our inspiration for this
mini-series.
Mini-series from her book, and and we tweaked stuff and put it in our own words, but she put an incredible resource together of like, hey, there's a different way. And it's so powerful. Because until you know that there's a different option for behavior, like you can't just magically get there. Right? Like there has to be some form of awareness and then some form of learning, right? And you can learn because I believe in a higher self. Like I believe the answers can come from within you.
Yeah.
And you can receive inspiration, and it just hits you like a download or an aha or whatever. But it is so much easier to have real world life examples, right? And so us having conversations about, hey, these are the challenges in a relationship. And so often we show up in one way because of our behavior patterns that's not serving and supporting. There are other options, right?
Yep.
And so that's what we're doing here.
So there's a scenario from the book, I guess.
Yeah.
That's right, sir. I recall it.
There's a scenario of one partner is grumpy and the other is feeling anxious or stressed about that. Like, what does it say about me that they're feeling this way? How can I get them to feel better so I'll feel better? And oftentimes, we describe pursue-withdraw patterns or attack-avoid patterns. And oftentimes, a partner with avoidant attachment withdraws, right, or avoids, and a partner with an anxious attachment pursues or attacks. But as you pointed out to me right before we started filming, it's not always the case. So these skills are for anybody in any circumstance if you find yourself engaging in these types of behaviors.
Right, because what we're going to talk about is like, life is challenging that day. You're feeling stress.
Right.
How does that show up in your relationships?
Yes.
And it tends to show up in specific ways. And whether you're the anxious side of the coin, whether you're the avoidant side of the coin, whether you're disorganized, right? Because if you're disorganized, you switch between anxious and avoidant, right? Mm-hmm. It's like life is stressful. It affects your relationships.
Yes.
How do you show up?
All right.
Like that's what we're talking about. And it's like, yeah. We can all relate to that. That's for real life.
I understand how you feel.
So if you're feeling grumpy and it's not about the other person, it's about a circumstance, like, because I've said this to the kids before, like if I'm upset about something and they come in, they go, Dad, I'm like, I'm upset right now. I'm not upset with you, but I need a minute. And they go, okay, right? So if you're in a space where you're not grumpy about the other person, and you don't want it to spill over onto them. Instead of, because here's some of the non-supportive things you might do. You might take out your anger on the other person, and that's, I think, the most immature.
Right. That's the most.
Just lashing out.
Yeah.
And immaturity also can just be in the moment. Like you could be mature a lot of the time, or candidly, hangry or tired, angry, tiredry.
What are you talking about?
For sure, tiredry.
But you can also be not in a great physiological state. So it's not just maturity. But so one, you might lash out at the other person.
Well, and what we're talking about emotional maturity, right?
Yeah.
Or emotional intelligence. But it's like you can be striving to be more emotionally mature and to be different than how you're taught and show up as the best version of yourself and all of that stuff. And it's like everybody still has bad days. You still get tired. You still get angry. It feels like your life is falling apart. Like everybody has those moments, right?
Yep.
It's just life.
It's just life. So,
and the avoidant partner will tend to do a couple things.
One is taking out that anger and frustration on the other person.
Yeah.
The other is just withdrawing inward and not sharing your emotions and not sharing what's going on and stonewalling and being non-responsive.
Yeah.
So,
or even not stonewalling, because the way you emotionally relate to the world, you say, I wouldn't need my partner to tell me what's going on, so therefore my partner shouldn't need me to tell them what's going on, right? But if you're avoidant and you just withdraw and your partner is anxious, and because your partner's, how they create emotional safety for themselves is always being attuned, and they're not okay unless you're okay, you're like, it's fine. Why can't you just be fine? And they're like, you don't understand. It's not fine. I'm not fine. If you're not fine, I'm not fine.
Well, I am not okay. I am crushed.
That's how they created emotional safety, right?
Yeah.
And so instead, it's okay that your needs are different than your partner's needs. It's also important that both needs get addressed.
Yes. So instead of any of that, try, I had a bad day and it's hard for me to be present right now. But it's not about my feelings towards you. I just need some time to decompress. And again, I think it's great to learn these words and to use these words, especially sometimes it's really healthy to have a memorized script so you could just like fall on it and not have to think about it.
If that's supportive.
If that's supportive.
Yeah.
And Alicia knows this, and Mike, our videographer, knows this. I'm not generally a scripts person. I'm an outlines person, because for me personally, I just kind of like to speak from whatever I'm feeling. And so for me, it's not about having the exact words, it's about the concept, which is why with our kids, I'll say something like, I'm angry, I'm not angry with you, I just need a few so I can be present. And they go, okay, and whatever variation. So whatever's more supportive for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one possibility is having the discussion before, before the moment. If there's behavior patterns between you and a loved one that you're like, hey, I'd like to handle this situation differently. Like, I know it's one of our pitfalls. I know it's one of our negative cycles. I know it's one of our behavior patterns that isn't serving us. So when XYZ happens, I'm going to say this, and I need you to understand that it means a certain thing for me. Or you and I have even had conversations around, like, especially tender things where you're feeling, anxious or defensive, and the way I naturally respond adds to that. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I'm trying to do. So in that moment, like, what do I need to say to give you the support you need? Because I want to give you the support, but I literally don't know what those words are or sound like for you.
Well, and when you recognize the patterns, you talked about having the conversation before. And that's just like before the next time, or like in between, right? Because the fact is, like, I really relate to this as somebody who is, what's called a highly sensitive person, and I have a lot of anxiety. When I'm in a calm space is a great time to have these conversations and to lay the groundwork for the next time I'm not, and so that's very helpful and very supportive when you say to me, I want to be here for you. It seems like the way I'm showing up for you isn't hitting the spot for you. Is that a me thing? Is that a you thing? Is that an us thing? Like, what can we do differently so that it runs smoother? And then you'll say things like, because here's what I'm trying to convey. And it seems like it's not landing that way. And I'll be like, yeah. And you'll say, is that how I'm phrasing it? Or is that how the headspace you're in? I'm like, it's both. And then we'll make decisions to do it differently, So yeah, that's beautiful. All right, so what to do if you are an anxiously attached person, which again, I feel like I'm much more securely attached in general now, but anxiously attached is how I've shown up in a lot of circumstances in my life. And by this I mean, if another person is upset, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, and I can't be okay until they're okay.
And often our relationship-oriented people are that way, right?
Yeah.
Because they value, your dreamers and healers value relationships as a priority, very deeply. And that doesn't mean our other personality types don't value relationships.
Right.
But that is the number one priority. The relationship is the number one priority. And we tend to like to get our worth from what we value, right? And your thinkers and your closers are task-oriented. And once again, it's not that they don't care about relationships.
Right.
It's just that the task is the priority. And so they tend to get their value from accomplishment. And so when the relationship isn't going well for the thinker and the closer, like they do tend to avoid.
Yeah. So instead of walking on eggshells or being mad at them for being grumpy or taking it personally, feeling super called out by all three of these options, you could try this instead. I'm feeling like we are disconnected right now and I feel really uncomfortable. Can I check in with you to see if this has something to do with me? It will help me to feel less anxious. Or you can try, it's important to me that you get the space you need to sort out what is going on for you. And I know it's been hard for me to give you that space in the past. I can do that now, but I need to know you'll talk to me about it when you're ready. I love that one especially because there's something called shelving your agenda, which is I want to meet your needs and be present for you, so I'm going to put my needs on the shelf, but they're coming off. That's the whole reason we call it putting them on the shelf, shelving your agenda, is I still have my needs, right? It's not negating or stuffing or ignoring my needs just to take care of what you need. So you need space. I get that.
Okay, I'll give you your space.
I need a conversation where we resolve this so I can be less anxious. So I can give you space. I need to know that we're going to have that. When can we have that? Tonight? Tomorrow? Like what would be a time that we can at least check back in on, is it time to have this conversation? So I love that one especially. Something that I've learned, and I know it's time to wrap it up, so I'll wrap it up. Something that I've learned is the concept of differentiation. Differentiation means I care enough to be engaged, but I'm detached enough that your feelings don't have to be my feelings. So if you're anxious, if you're angry, if you're grumpy, if you're sad, sometimes meeting you where you're at is healing because you feel like someone's joining with you. Other times, there's a time I came home from work and you were stressed with a full day from the kids. And so I'm like, oh, the kids have made her stressed, so I'm going to meet them with aggression. And you're like, no, I don't need you to be stressed out about the kids the way I am. I've had a full day. I need you to be calm and patient. Like, I don't need you to fight this battle with me.
I don't need you to join with me by feeling what I feel.
Yeah.
And I have heard people in relationships, they're like, I want you to join with me. I want you to feel how I feel. And I'm like, okay, I don't relate to that. I completely accept that's
right.
That's how you're seen. But especially when it comes to the kids, because there was a little bit like, you got to be kidding me.
You've got to be kidding me.
Like, it's been 10 hours for me. You've been home like 15 minutes. Like...
but especially in the context of what we're talking about in this video,
right.
Your partner's grumpy, and that's affecting how you're feeling. Instead of, it's okay for them to be grumpy.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine, because we'll work through it.
Well, and it's your opportunity, if you choose, to recognize that there's a worth tie.
Yes.
That you're attaching your worth as a person and your value in the world and your worthiness to how your partner is showing up. And you can absolutely do that. But what that does is that takes your worth out from like the center of your being and gives it to that other person. And so another way of saying that's giving them your power, right?
Right.
And so it is the way that anxious creates emotional security, right?
Yeah.
And we come by it honestly. But is it serving you? Is it supporting you? Is that what you want to keep doing? And if it's not, we have programs in our therapy clinic that take you step by step through supporting you, putting down those worth ties. But it's a beautiful opportunity, if you allow it, to start journaling, or handling it in whatever way that's supportive for you, and to start saying, oh, here's the feelings that are coming up for me. Here's what I'm experiencing when my partner treats me this way. And it's so powerful to recognize, because I call them the difference between big T truths and little T truths. Little T truths are things we believe are true that aren't true, but they do guide our life. And the big T truths are absolute truth. And the absolute truth is that yours, everyone's worth is innate, and we carry it with us. The little T truths are when I say, oh, if my partner's not okay, I'm not okay. Or the way my partner treats me says XYZ thing about me. That can be the beautiful side of all our uncomfortable life experiences, because if we allow it, it helps us to change and grow and be the best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. So what we want to know from you is, what have been your big takeaways, your light bulb aha moments from this video or this series, and how are you going to apply them in your life?
And do you like these videos? Do you want us to do more of the instead of this, try that? If you do, let us know below.
Now, if you're just joining us or you've only caught a few, we've got an entire playlist on attachment theory, on attachment styles, and how to arrive at a place of secure, healthy attachment. That playlist is popping up right here somewhere. Until next time, folks, keep shining.
We need your light.